why write this book, and what foods do you think are the most harmful for our anxiety and depression that are really kind of the culprits?
Yeah, I wanted to write the book for a couple of reasons. One, nutritional psychiatry is something I've been practicing and thinking about for over a decade. And it kind of, the evidence really turned the corner about 3 or 4 years ago. And a couple of things happened. One, a lot of other clinicians got interested in getting trained, and as we gave conferences and workshops, there's just a lot of buzz around some of the science behind this and some of the new data coming out around particularly the Mediterranean diet to treat depression, but just the overall connection between gut health. Like 10 years ago, I talked about like the microbiome and gut health and how that influenced your brain. People were like, meh, meh. Now it's like keynote speaker time, right? Like, oh, talk more about the microbiome. Like, it's fascinating, gut brain connection. And so new science, I think, is the short answer.
Uh-huh.
And then I think people don't get it yet. I think people haven't oriented their food and their life around their brain health. We think about what we look like. We think about how much we make. We think about the car we drive. We think about our house. We don't think like you won, you have got a human brain. It's like there's nothing else. Like all the other organs in your body, you can buy at Home Depot. Pump, Home Depot. Filter, Home Depot. Air filter, Home Depot, right? Mm-hmm. Human consciousness generator, maker of all your hopes and dreams. Like you can't get that at Home Depot. You can't get that at Lowe's either. No, it's like special thing.
You
and
can't?
so orienting around really feeding that. What does it need?
Yeah.
And I think that's helped me, especially coming from medicine where they teach us to scare people, which doesn't really work. And you feel like an asshole, right? It's like no cholesterol, like bad person, like no meat, bad, like dying of heart disease. And I didn't really like that. I get really tired of that because it seemed like the data wasn't really holding up, and also that nobody was changing how they eat based on that advice. And so I got really curious, how do we best feed the brain? What foods actually work for that? And so to your question, the toxic foods, people I think really lost the track in the meat versus no meat and the kind of low fat cholesterol era messaging. So as we go from low fat and low cholesterol into like, let's all be plant-based, into let's all be vegan, there's been to me, it feels like like some weird dissociative experience where people stopped paying attention to what mattered, both in terms of data, but also in terms of taking care of brain health. Yeah. Like when I look at a dietary plan and it's like missing nutrients that your brain needs, because I'm kind of the kind of person like I'm a little old school. I just feel like, can you get it all from food? Right. Almost like a little challenge, because everybody else in history had to, and they did pretty well. They got us here to this point.
Yeah, we're here, I think.
We're here, right? They didn't have vitamins. The first vitamin got isolated in 1912. Isn't that crazy? Wow. It's like 110 years ago. There's like, anyway.
That's pretty crazy.
The harmful foods, breakfast cereal, yeah. Any like soda, any like basically drink that you buy in the store and open. It doesn't matter if it's like a tea, a soda, a diet soda. I think those are horrible for your mental health. Mm-hmm. I think it habituates you into this idea that you need this little canister of sugar, sweet sugary something or non-sugary.
Yeah.
I think that throws off your metabolism and your palate and your microbiome. I think that simple carbohydrates, and everybody says that in different ways. Some people say sugar, some people say fast carbs, but they just generally tend to be foods that we don't need to chew very much. They go down really quickly. Yeah, foods you don't need to chew. Stuff from Joey's childhood fryer where the oil hasn't been changed. Like that's probably the most toxic food on earth. Like it's amazing that you recovered as you did. It's like when you say it's like a couple bad days, I was like, geez, that's like, you've got it down. Cause yeah. That was like, you're like half trans fast probably, Joey. So,
oh dude, I have no idea, but yeah, I was probably living on.
Did you do like some fried desserts in there too? Like, would you put like brownies and Twinkies in there?
I never thought about that. That's
because you're over there. Missouri sounds like in Indiana, you go to the state fair here, you can get like a fried Snickers bar. You can get fried ice cream. We fried all of it too.
I would buy the Snickers ice cream bars, the box of them, which had 6 or 8, and I would eat it in one sitting.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
Like, that sounds like, yeah, You and I feel like had a similar Midwestern teenage depression where it was like, let me tell you about my pain and a series of Snickers bar ice cream sandwiches.
Yeah, pretty much. So what are those things, the simple carbs, fast carbs, sugars, all those, what's happening to our brain? And is it just our brain, or is there an effect on our microbiome?
Well, let's start because it's all very, very connected. So let's start. You eat those foods. First of all, is you're crowding out more what we call nutrient dense foods in nutritional psychiatry and nutrition. So foods like oysters or wild salmon or kale or sweet potatoes, where for the calories they're bringing, and even if it's some sugars in there, they're bringing lots and lots of nutrition.
Yeah.
These simpler foods aren't. So that's why 50% of Americans don't meet the recommended daily allowance of magnesium, and like 70% don't meet the recommended daily allowance of zinc. So in terms of brains, a couple of things happening here. One, we're increasing inflammation because we're missing some nutrients, but also we're just eating in a way like sugar in processed foods just trigger inflammations through the trans fats, through the spike in blood sugar and the insulin. Through over time we gain weight, and all that central adiposity that people talk about. The reason it's bad for you is it's constantly like spewing out inflammatory factors. It's not like just hanging out like we don't look great in it. It's metabolically active tissue. It makes us over time more resistant to insulin, which over time leads to more inflammation. So this is what's happening in the body. Now, first of all, those inflammatory factors then start floating around. They start activating certain elements of the immune system of your brain, because your brain has its own special set of cells. So you start to see more activation of what's called your microglia. You can actually, some of my colleagues at Columbia now image this, and they see in depressed patients, there's more inflammatory markers generally, but also in the brain, there's more inflammation. And we know when inflammation happens to the brain, we affect three major circuits. In the book, I talk about, I interviewed Roger McIntyre, and I was like, Roger, I'm writing this book, bro. And it's like, this is what I hear, but it sounds like, am I too like deep in the wellness juju world? And he was like, no. He's like, inflammation is horrible for the brain. It affects three circuits. It affects mood circuits. It makes us feel down. We lose a sense of joyfulness and pleasure. Life loses its color. And you can think about that like back in the day when you were sick or injured and you went to hide in your cave. It's not like you wanted to be like, I got injured, but I'm going to come back, right? You like go recuperate in the cave. Yeah. Makes us hyper vigilant. So we're always looking around. We're nervous. We're anxious. Again, from a kind of cave person standpoint, makes some sense, right? We're going to be looking, at the edge of the horizon for threats, especially again, if we're injured or sick. And then it shuts down our cognitive circuits in the sense that one brain fog, right? That symptom people talk about, it's very clearly related to inflammation. And so, and some people, people have experience, like you go out for a hard night of drinking, staying up too late and eating too much food. And you wake up the next day and you feel kind of like, and have a little brain fog. It's because your brain is kind of bruised in a way. It's struggling with the inflammation of not sleeping, of being assaulted with alcohol, and of having all this, ice cream thrown at it late at night and chips and all that stuff. So that's what's happening in your brain. The other thing, sorry, this is like long-winded here. The thing that really concerns me is what happens then is, so we have this kind of, let's just say a little bit of inflammation going on. What your brain's always trying to do is grow, right? So like you and I are a good example of two neurons, right? We met each other on Instagram, right? But our brain's been wanting to connect for whatever reason. We thought we were going to have a fun conversation. We wanted to talk mental health. I wanted to talk mental health. Right. And so over time, somehow we've gotten to this moment, and it's in many ways to me a brain phenomenon. Right. And now that we've had more of a real conversation, like our brains are a little more connected, both in our own brain, but also with each other. Yeah. And so brain growth and brain connection is really what the brain is trying to do. And one of the ways I try to think about this inflammation and why I'm talking so much about these foods is really trying to get people into a brain grow mode. But this idea that your brain is really poised to grow and make new connections and learn. It's poised to really recover from stress, from these bad days that both Joey and I have, where it doesn't go 2, 3, 4, 5. It sort of happens. You deal with it. You take some active steps and you kind of pop back out of it, ideally, hopefully. But yeah, what happens in terms of these foods is they increase inflammation. We're not even talking about the microbiome yet. So they cause the types of bacteria in your gut that cause more inflammation.
Yeah.
Bad food causes those to grow more. And all of that leads to a kind of decreased drive for our brain to be in growth and recovery mode.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it is really, really interesting to think about this, because for the longest time, people only looked at food as what is going to happen aesthetically to
Mm-hmm.
you, and then
Calories, right? It's just
yeah,
energy.
calories and energy, and maybe you were by chance having these different foods, that could help your brain. But looking at a diet on and what to eat, and you've got a whole 6-week plan here, and incorporating these specific foods, I could see how people are just going to start obviously feeling better, but looking better as well. Because I mean, a lot of these foods in here is exactly how I would prescribe a nutrition plan for somebody.
Well, that's good. I mean, here I am, like 47. These are the foods I eat. So I don't know. It's I don't really take any supplements. I just eat these foods. So I guess maybe I'm hopefully an example of at least staying somewhat reasonably useful and healthy. And I do think that what looks best on people, I mean, I've seen lots of people over the years go from single to married and in love and or partnered, or however they kind of went from that state. And what strikes me is that just what looks good on people,
Mm.
and what looks good and sexy on people is feeling confident. And
Yep.
it doesn't, I mean, and I think that gets missed into so much, that like what really doesn't turn people on is when people are worried or obsessed or too harsh on themselves, and not focused on connection and having a good time. So
Yeah.
but yes, it's my hope that it's not just, because it is my hope that as people adopt these foods, now that we have a country that the majority of our country is struggling with high blood sugar and obesity, and that's really driving part of the depression and anxiety epidemic, that people will really reclaim some of their metabolic health, and it'll have profound implications, both, for how people feel. I think you're right, in the short term, better sleep, better mood, but also just feeling a better sense of efficacy and really self-empowerment to be able to take control of your health.